Wait, weren't they already killers? Killer Crabs, the second installment in the Crabs series by Guyan Smith from 1978. This could have easily been a whole new story, with no returning characters and a rehashed plot. Thankfully, Mr. Smith pulls off a rather mature novel compared to his first outing. The plot. On Australia's Hayman Island in Barbecue Bay, something is stirring below the surface of the warm waters of this tropical paradise. Now, Cliff Davenport is hot on the scene after investigators come to the conclusion that the titular killer crabs have returned to wreak havoc, who will end up surviving this pulpy horror story. The on, now, and who of the plot is generic. On the setting, a threat is discovered. Now, they must stop it, and who will survive? Changing the location was a smart idea, as well as bringing back a familiar character. Cliff Davenport returns, and even though his now wife, Pat, is limited to one scene, her presence is still felt. There might have been another returning character, a la the Colonel, but I don't know if it is the same Colonel. That's the thing with these old dollar bin novels from back in the day. They were either discarded or destroyed or preserved. Mostly just tossed aside and forgotten about, though. However, we're not here for the history of pulpy horror. We're here for crabs. Surprisingly, there's more sex than carnage, which was a bit of a disappointment. I always looked to this book as the one most people probably turned to back in 1978 because of the awesome cover to my left. Unfortunately, there's like 5, 6, maybe even 7 sex scenes, and they're all with the same girl. I felt bad for her lovers because they barely were even that to her. The only one who stood a chance was the at first badass turned pussy-whipped Clint. At first he was a merciless pirate enjoying gunfights with fishermen, especially those Japs. Damn Japs. I love them. He even coordinated an attack on the Japs. It seems that when he chose the horror over the action is when he started to become emotionally invested. And basically a prostitute. They can't give you that kind of love. Sorry, pal. There's a big game hunter, Harvey Logan, that if I read it right, doesn't really put out well with the horror. Instead, he turns into a ruthless killer. I may not be able to pound your pussy, but I can pound your head in with a rock. Ah! He starts off wanting a shark, then a crab, then a suitcase with 20,000 pounds. British book. From a deceased man named Frank Burke, who also goes to town on the slut. That's dirty words. It is not like there's no crab action, though. There's a singular destruction scene similar to the first book. Could have there been more epic sequences, though? Yes, I do feel there definitely could have been. The opening of the book does tell of a quite different atmosphere than the first. It talks about a Japanese fishing ship that gets a crab stuck in its net. The resolution of that scene is actually quite chilling. As is the first time they see the crab, there's this silence among the crew, and I can just picture the perfect piece of music that could have ended that scene right there. Now, does that mean it's a mature novel in that regard? Hell no! What I meant by mature is in adult content. Maybe even pornographic or fantasy-esque attributes can equip it with that title. Seriously, the skank wants rape and pleasure. She's insanely orgasmic. I hate to keep bringing that point up, but it takes up such a huge portion of the novel that I felt like I was reading Jaws again. Want to know what else takes up a decent portion of this novel? The gore! Much similar to the first, bodies snapped in half. Innards and blood galore. This is starting to turn into a gory kaiju series, and I dig that. Now, under the right conditions, sure, it's a fun read with action, gore, and tons of sex. If only they opened up the characters more than Miss Thunderthighs opened her legs, then this novel might have been really something. It's not as good as the first, because it's way too excessive. Is it a shitty book? No. Is it pulpy horror on high? Abso-frickin-lutely. Overall, I give Killer Crabs a 2.5 out of 5. I'm actually kind of worried about the next installment. It's titled Origin of the Crabs, and we all know how origins and prequels go in the horror/creature genre. If it's not great, it's usually average or worse. Lion Brian Gatto, host of Horror Entertainment. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below to leave comments and subscribe.